Guys, I got Bank here. We just finished the Japan Summit, and he just got over back to Bangkok, and we just had a fucking very nice day yesterday. And I've been working on this idea for a while, and I think there was recently a comment by somebody. Now it was by a hater and everything, and it's not. I don't want to waste time responding to it too much, but. It was the idea of I don't even want to say the word, but HATE on women. And I think that I don't want to make a full rebuttal because it's so obviously ridiculous. But I think one of the things that people could be confused about is what should you do? Like, for example, what do you do, for example, if your boss is abusing you? Like, are you allowed to dislike him? Like, are you supposed to smile and think he's a great guy and then quit the job? Like, are you allowed to have any emotions anymore? Or let's say some bullies are beating you up for your lunch money. So you go to school and you're getting your ass kicked every morning and you're just dreading leaving the house. And are you not allowed to have any feelings about that anymore? Like, if somebody's messing you over or if things are not going your way, like, are men allowed to have emotions anymore? It's just crazy idea. Like, you are going to have, as a human being, okay, you're going to have strong emotions. I talk about things that are very, like very disadvantageous for men, like, in the West, that make it, so bad that the only reason why I think you'd want to be in the West is if there's a specific reason. So if you have, for example, a startup, somebody who's like working on a startup, raising money and kicking ass in America, they can just ignore the social situation for a while, right? Because this is more important, right? It's kind of like when you live in a shitty room, but you're saving money, or, you just don't care. You're just like totally focused on something else, right? So there's a good reason to be in different Western countries if you have something going on. But if you're just sleepwalking your life and living in a place where basically everything is tilted against you. And you're just being taken advantage of and you're at risk all the time. Like, you, as a man, you're always at risk. Like, it's basically a man today in the West is always on eggshells to go to prison. That's the truth. And the reason why is very simple, is that there's no justice because any court case can be brought against you based on people talking. Any other evidence, any other case, if you're robbing a bank or whatever, if they don't get the evidence, like if they don't find the money or whatever, there's certain things they got to find, right? And it's a whole thing about finding a body, right? If they don't find a body, like they can, like you see so many things just go unsolved. Everybody knows what happened, right? But they don't have the body. Like, there's justice, there are rules. And those rules, of course, can be abused, and they will be, but they exist for a more important reason, is so that innocent people don't go to jail. So you have to do something in the law, even though everybody knows, right? Everybody knows. But you know what? Sometimes everybody knows something that's not true, and that happens in history all the time. And woe the man, who's in the case where it's like smoke, there's fire. I hate that. I hate where there's smoke, there's fire, because that's the one that's used the most to abuse people, because it's a way of saying, hey, the facts don't matter. But the facts do matter. The facts do matter. And that's why we have laws, and that's why men have built a society from a bunch of people scavenging in the mud, and getting like all kinds of diseases all the time and dying at 18 or 22. We built this system. It's not perfect, but it does give you a pretty good life. You can live to 80 years old now. You know what I mean? And you can do a lot of things. You can get into a huge metal tube and go into another country for like a few, like hours work, and you can be in another country. Like, that was never, people walked before, or they had a horse, and the horse needed to be fed and watered and slept, and it was a totally different life. So what men have built is pretty fucking good. And so I wanted to go back into that. So what should you do? Okay, Like, what should you do when, like, basically, if you look at everybody's getting accused now, everybody's going to jail. Any famous guy who gets too famous, he eventually goes to jail. Now, I'm not saying, and this is one actually warning I have on my channel, and I really am not, I hope you can see this channel is very different than other like manosphere channels, because I tell you, it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon. So for example, somebody like Russell Brand, and just immediately say, it's the Matrix coming after him. It's, you know what I mean? And it's just like right away, that's the fucking narrative, is that it's like, it was a moment of time. They knew that, what is the Illuminati, they're all going to get him, and it was only, it's coming for you. And this is a very powerful narrative. And of course, there is some truth to that. There is definitely some truth when you're saying like counter, whatever media things. You're saying the opposite of what they're saying. Of course, there's a resentment against you. But to believe that, let's put it this way. It's hard to live life. Life is tough. It's hard to be fair. It's hard to be honest. Even as a man, for myself, I'm constantly struggling. We build our moral backbone as a man, right? And then we decide what we're going to do in life, right? What we accept, what we don't accept, right? And that's about our boundaries and stuff. It's easy just to let those boundaries go and just break them and just lie about it. It's easy just to spend a whole life with basically just being a fucking blob like everybody else. Like having no, you know what I mean? It's just easier. Every time something changes, you change. Every time they say this is wrong, you agree with them, right? And then you don't have any trouble.
It's like you don't even have a path that you're walking.
Yeah, you don't have a path. And you just skate right through all these troubles, basically. And, it's like, it is very tempting to people. Like, and people could say that is a smart way to go. Just to be a sleazebag at all times. Just basically turn on people. If you get caught for anything, just turn on your friends. They will go to jail and you will go free. Okay? There are things that, it has practical consequences. But as a man, I'm always saying, like, do the tough thing. I am always, because life is fucking tough. So for example, I don't use any performance enhancing drugs. And I work out hard. And, if I use steroids or if I use testosterone or any of those other, TRT, any of those human growth, I would be fucking huge. Because I have a body that would definitely put on the muscle, right? And I know that. And it's just constantly a struggle for me because I've never used any performance enhancing drugs. I've never gone down that route. I've always done the best I can do with my natural body. And I think that's a metaphor for my entire life. I want to always do the best with what I have, right? Because I know there's consequences for the other stuff. See, I want to live to 105. I want to be like climbing Mount Fuji 105 and just laughing, right? And then people were like, whoa, fuck. That's my goal personally. I don't want to be like this huge, whatever, like specimen of manhood and then just have kidney problems and liver problems and back problems and then die young. I personally don't think you have to choose. Like, do you want to be like a shining, do you want to be Jimi Hendrix, die 24 or whatever, or do you want to like live a longer life? And it's very tempting as a young guy to say, yeah, I want to go for the max and like a rocket, and then I want to bam go out. But I'll tell you, the older you get, you realize that's foolishness. At least that's what I realized. Is you want to live a long, good life and learn every minute that you can. Every minute that you breathe and your eyes open on this planet is like after life is over, it is like darkness forever. Like there's nothing out there. It's just cold space, right? Every moment that you're alive, you're taking in the sunshine. You're hearing the birds. You're having a chance to breathe. You're having a chance to connect with other beings and learn and challenge yourself. And the whole like complicated, what do you call it? Like game that we're in, right? Of life. And then it's over, right? And then it's over. And so, like, I think that, for myself, I appreciate life. Like, I'm not like a, what do you call it? I honestly think most people, they don't appreciate life. They just don't give a shit. They don't give thanks. Like, just because they don't, like, when you believed in God, they would be grateful, right? And they would praise God in the morning and this and that. And that was like a fake kind of in Japan, you have A set, B set, C set lunches, right? That was like an A set belief system. And the purpose of that belief system was there was a lot of things that was designed for, to help you out as a man. But I think as a man, what you do is you build the structure. You don't need anything handed to you, okay? But you appreciate, like, for example, those belief systems were designed for a reason, is that gratitude makes you feel good. It lowers your cortisol. It makes you appreciate and enjoy life and see things better, right? It opens your eyes. You breathe deeper. And there's an appreciation for what's given to you, for what's in front of you. And there's something very powerful about that. Very powerful. They connect it to sleep and long life and like good friendships and health and all these things, right? But you don't need an A set, B set, C set belief system to do that. What I'm saying is like, just appreciate life. Like, without any reason. No one's there to tell you, oh, this is the way, this is the way it has to be, or this is the way, if you believe this and this and this, and then there's three gods, and then they fit together like this. Instead, you just say, you know what? I am grateful for this planet, like for the green leaves. Like, I'm grateful for the blue sky, I'm grateful for the misty, fuzzy clouds, And right now I'm grateful for the little breeze coming in the window, And the fact that it's only like, 7 a.m, and it's still just like, so I'm sitting here bang, like, shirts off, just fucking so comfortable. And I'm grateful for the weather, and I'm grateful that I'm here, because it was not easy for me to come back to Asia after my court case. It's always difficult to make a change, right? So anyway, that sense of gratitude doesn't have to be attached to a bunch of things that are going to make you limit your life or make you blackmailable. And I think that's what a man is. A man just sees through everything and finds the good in it. He doesn't put down, for example, a religion just because he doesn't believe the whole thing. He says, you know what? They do these great things, and these are very good for them. And I think that's really smart. There's no need to just go in and then just trash the whole fucking thing. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, those people are out there, and they're doing the right things on this and this and this. And that's what I kind of take on myself, or I emulate myself. When I go to a Buddhist temple, I don't immediately start picking them apart, or I don't have to go and say, oh, Western religions are like this, and Easterns are so great. It's like, no, what do I see in front of me? Oh, I see a bunch of peaceful people doing cool things. I smell something nice. I see a beautiful golden, whatever vase, and I see some fruit, and I can really appreciate it. And then I can also appreciate, like, when I hear somebody who's very, someone like, for example, who's Christian, who, I was listening to this guy the other day, and he was an African Christian. He was saying that, Christianity was in Africa before the West. It wasn't a Western religion. And it was because it was Israel, right? And it came right across. Like, it was Christianity started way before the West, and like America didn't exist. It wasn't a white man's religion. And he was talking about how it's an African religion, And I was thinking, wow. And I was listening to his kind of take on the whole thing. And I was thinking, fuck, I can totally get on board with his take on the kind of morals and the way that it helps him to live his life and be honest. And I have friends who are, Christian, and they're like good guys. They actually are good guys, especially the fathers and stuff. They're fucking solid dudes, There's nothing. These guys are, they got a lot of shit going on. I mean, They ain't fucking sitting on the street doing fentanyl, I'll tell you that. You know what I mean? And they're trying to teach their kids the right thing to do, you know? They're in decent shape, you know? They save money. They treat their kids with respect, you know? They keep their house nice, you know? Fuck, these guys are respectful dudes, you know? And you got to love that. So anyway, so here's what the thing is. What do you do? Back to the original question. And that was a necessary tangent, because what do you finally do? So you kind of know what I'm thinking, but what do you do about the fact that it is very distasteful in the West? I don't like the fact that I can go to jail. I don't like the fact that everybody that's famous ends up getting hunted down. Now, at the same time, I am not defending these guys. I'm not, because I don't know these guys, and I don't know what they did. And what I was starting to say is it's hard to be a good man. So if these guys faltered on their road to being a good man, I can't forgive that just because I like the other things they do. You have to be able to, even as a man, even if one of your heroes or one of the men you know, if he makes like a huge unforgivable mistake, you got to be able to say, you know what? As a fair man, that sucks, you know, but that is fucking not cool what he did, right? And you have to be able to say that about your heroes. That's the whole point. We're not believing in, like, I'm not telling you, hey, there's the only way to think. You're always looking at life and saying, what is right? What is wrong? What should I do in this situation, right? And I think if somebody did something absolutely unforgivable, there's a point where you need to say, you know what? Fuck that guy. You have to be able to say that about any of your heroes if you get new information. Now, I'm not saying there is new information. I'm not saying that you should do that with this guy. I'm just saying that you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, here's why the manosphere is not respected, is because it's attacking mainstream media. It's attacking a lot of groups. But then whenever somebody else makes a mistake in our group, it's just constantly on his side no matter what, right? Because it's kind of fears like, oh, if we don't support this guy, everything's going to fall apart. But I'm telling you right now, everything's not going to fall apart. The reason why, right here from Ronin Man, is that we're based on the truth. And the truth is more powerful. So don't choose a person as the final, like, that is it if we lose that guy. No, it's the truth. And in the end, the truth is kind of like ugly. And so in the short term, the truth doesn't look strong. It's easier just to support your man or support your team, right? Support the Niners no matter what, right? Or your guy for president or whatever, It's easier to support him because it just seems simpler and you might win the election or whatever. But in the span of time, if you don't stay close to the truth, it's going to come bite you in the ass. And you're going to have to pay a price for that. And people will say, well, why did you do that? And then you can come up with all these excuses. But the truth is that either you were dishonest, you covered things up, and then you have to start making amends. If you stay as close to the truth as possible, the advantage is, long-term you win. And you can just ignore the short-term kind of roller coaster of things. Because long-term, the truth is going to win, right? But short-term, you do have to go, and like I say, it's just easier. It's easier to be a worm in life. Okay, so when it comes to the HATE women, that is a very difficult one because it's such a hot topic. Now, obviously, anybody who listens to this channel knows this is not true, but it's a fair question, what should you feel and what should you do? My take, after thinking about it for a long time, is basically in the West, it's kind of hopeless. Because even if you meet a sweet girl, honestly, she can just start watching the wrong TV show and become a different person. She can get the wrong best friend. And I know a lot of people are going to think, no, that's not going to change a woman. Statistically, they've done research. And this is not bullshit. This is, I forget the name of the study. When I find it, I'll put it in the comment. This is straight up truth. When women let's say a group of, let's say 3. One of them gets divorced. The other ones get divorced at a much higher rate. Okay, so when there's a women's friend group and one woman cheats, the other women cheat. When there's a women's friend group and let's say all wives and one of them gains weight, they all tend to gain weight. Even the women that were not there, even the women that were living at another state and didn't have the internet and were like far away, on the phone calls, they don't really understand how it works, but part of it might be just, oh, honey, we went out last night and we just had a cheat night, and then the girl hears that and she's like, oh, my friend is like giving me the okay on the cheat night, right? And then they tend to gain weight, even if they're not even seeing their friends gain weight. Just the fact that their friends gained weight beyond their knowledge, they gained more weight. That is a fact. And the thing is, the only thing that they can tie it to is that, and here's the reason. If you want the reason, and there's a very good reason. If you think about it, it's very true. There's going to be a convoluted answer, but it's important. What is gossip? People will often tell me, oh, don't gossip. Don't talk about somebody else. Gossip, what it is, okay, when you talk about other people, what you are doing, and here's what they've discovered about gossip. It's very interesting, actually. Gossip is, I think it's about 70% of human communication is gossip, talking about other people, right? So what is gossip? What gossip actually is, if you want to understand gossip, what it is, it's 2 people making, giving each other messages and making a decision. So for example, if I say to somebody, okay, the other day, I was waiting for, whatever, and then they never came, and it really pissed me off, and I'll never do that again. I'm never going to meet that. Okay. So, now, when you think on surface level, I'm talking about, let's say, some boss or whatever. I'm just talking about some person, right? But actually, you know what? Why am I telling my friend that story? Okay, the reason why I'm telling my friend that story, and this is what they've discovered about gossip, is it sounds weird, but what humans do, this is what we do. This is what you're doing. This is what I do. I'm telling you that I don't accept people making appointments and not showing up. And that if that happens, it's kind of like a threat almost. It's like if that happens, like if you said you're going to meet me and then you didn't, I'm going to be very pissed off and won't want to meet you again, right? And then if you agree, the other person will say, hey, that happened to me too. And this is what usually happens with friends. And so let's say, for example, let's just use the example. So let's say that Bank here is like lazy, right? He's always missing. He's always not showing up, right? Which is not true at all. But let's just say it was. And so then I tell a story about another guy, okay? And let's say I don't know that you don't show up because you've always showed up for me, but you know, your whole life you're not showing up for people, right? And so, but you know that, right? So then I tell you, oh, I met this guy and he didn't show up and it was fucking fucked and I'm never going to talk to him again. The message to you is that if you do that to me, obviously I'm not going to be your friend. And so what do? Then you have a decision to make, is if you want to be my friend. So what you decide is like, wait, I like being around this guy, or I don't, and then you say, well, that's who I am. I'm into that. I'm into, saying I'm going to show up and not showing up because I think you should have freedom or whatever, And then I would be like, oh, well, that's cool. And then I wouldn't call you for lunch, right? But what it gives you the opportunity as a friend is to say, oh, he's putting down a stake here. He's giving me a message about what it means to be his friend, and what he values, and what he thinks is important. And I now have a choice. Do I want to support that and be part of that? Is that something that would help me? Is that something I want to do? Is that something that I agree with? And then if you say, you know what, fuck, I've always been late. I've always been slouching and it's never helped me. And like, here's a guy who doesn't do that. And here's my chance to change, right? And then you know what? I'm fucking tired of this shit. It's kind of like somebody who's been doing some for too long, something, sleeping in too long, drinking, whatever it is that he wants to change, any hobby, he wants to lose weight. And so then the guy goes, yeah, that, I don't like that either. And so then what we're doing is we're making an agreement that in our friendship, people show up, they say they're going to be there, they show up on time. Okay, and then the next time he gossips, the next time your friend gossips, think about what message he's sending to you as a friend. What he's doing is he's making agreements with you. And we're making agreements about our friendship, about what we value as friends. And so that's the problem with lying, is when you lie, is you're making kind of like quote unquote agreements that you don't even do, right? So you secretly break them all the time, so that's why it's so important about being honest. It is so important because otherwise you have no basis for any friendship. Because then everybody finds out that you were lying about that. Whereas if you just say, something like, hey, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand you value that. And because you value that, I'm always going to do that when I'm with you. But if that ever becomes too much of a burden for me, then I won't hang out with you. That would be a very fair thing to say. If you don't quite agree, but you like the guy. So anyway, you do have options. You don't have to agree or disagree or lie. You do have options. And then you can decide, hey, how do I feel about this? Do I really think this is important in my life? And if you do, you might discover something new and you can teach your friend. Say, hey, you once told me this and I agree with you, but I thought about it. And what about this? Let me run this by you. What about if this happens? Or what about this subtlety? What about that? And then I might go, yeah, that is actually less clear than I thought. And then I might have doubt and then later kind of clarify my own values, and our own friendship might create our own new kind of value system that we both kind of discovered together, right? So there's real benefits to doing this with your friends, to kind of just being honest and just being, honest with your own weaknesses and also too learning, because if you, as a man, let's say you don't have a father, you're really raised by a single mother or whatever, and you're not raised with values the same way that you would be if you had a father kicking your ass all the time, then, it is very advantageous for you to allow in maybe some uncomfortable disciplines that are not, you know what I mean? You didn't get them as a kid, so it's kind of hard to learn as an adult. But if you do want to keep improving yourself, there might be something you missed. And what you think is you might not really be you. It might be some bullshit that your mom taught you. And those things can be very difficult to get rid of. But it's these type of kind of honest discussions and honest friendships and actually having friends that are fucking good guys, like men. Those guys can help you. It might take a couple years, but eventually you can recreate yourself and grow beyond a very cheesy, wormy thing that you're doing. So you're not stuck with even the most entrenched, embarrassing, difficult things. Those things can be also replaced by values that make sense and that are very, transparent and masculine over time. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that this is what male friendship can allow you to do, right? So what do you do? This is funny because we went off the topic so many times of what the original topic was. So what is it now? It's 8 minutes, right? So now I want to say what to do with Western women. Friendzone. Fucking friendzone those bitches. And that is the best. Because the HATE word, it is so easy. It is so easy to attack men. I mean, it's easy to put men in jail. It's terrifying as a man. And I get so tired of being attacked. And especially when you're attacked by some dude it's like it can just get crazy. It just the amount of like worms and simps and white knights and like feminist men and dangerous fucking guys that don't even know they're feminists. You know, they don't even know that they're completely like they don't even know their own values. Like you can just get suddenly like totally attacked by a guy that you think kind of is right on, and then you're like, holy shit. He has this whole belief system inside his mind that's been, you know, in my mind, you know, it's basically just brainwashed by the Matrix, by some fucking TV show or something, right? And they're very like touchy about it, like start attacking and fucking going crazy, right? And fucking banning and shaming and canceling, and all of a sudden it's just full fucking, you know, SJW fucking Superman, you know, the fucking cape comes out, you know, super warrior, you know, fucking, you know, in the fucking pink fucking panty thing or whatever the fuck, and just like flying around, you know, just shaming men, you know, it's so.
Giving the stink eye.
What's that?
Giving the stink eye of doom.
Oh, the stink eye of doom. There you go. Just fucking. You know. So, you know, the thing is like women have fucking friend zoned you for years. Okay? You're probably in the friend zone of at least one woman right now. You know? And the thing is so you understand the friend zone. The friend zone is you can kind of like keep them around. You can kind of like dangle them a little bit. Just kind of have them there. You don't have to like kind of like diss them or take them in. You can just kind of, they never know what you think. Friend zone people. They really don't know where you're coming from, right? They think that they might get a chance to marry you or whatever, right? That's fine. I think the best thing to do is to friend zone Western women. And that is it's the best way to sidestep the very dangerous situation. And then when you go overseas, right, and you meet a woman from a conservative background, then you can be normal. So whatever you want to do, that's up to you. But like these women, part of this fucking evil, what do you call it, like police state, who can just lock you up on a moment's notice, take your money. What did I read that recently? Like in Australia, if you live with a girl for like, even like a very short period of time, she can divorce you as a wife and get half. Just for like not married, nothing. And that's what's coming is men are not marrying. So now what they're doing is they're trying to the guy he's paying child support because he was a babysitter. And the family court, this is a true case, the family court said he took on a fatherly role. He was a paid fucking babysitter. And now he's paying child support to the kid that he was being paid to care for. So men, you know, and I think most people don't know about these things. So they think, oh, it's not that dangerous. It is very dangerous. If you're an intelligent man, you know, you calculate the risk of things and the odds of things. It is just not safe in the West to interact with women any level besides friend zoning. You know, you want to just keep it as basically friend zone as possible. You know, men are not, you know, they're not mentoring women at work, and women know, and people know why. Because when you go alone with a woman, especially an attractive young woman in your office, and you close the door, and you're giving her like mentorship. Like right now, we're alone, mentorship, right? Mentorship's not in a group. It's alone, right? It's in privacy. It's intimate. Every man knows that there's any moment, and it only takes one in his entire lifetime to ruin his life, ruin his career, and maybe put him in jail and brand him as a pervert, as a SA, as a R, and then later, even if years later they find out it's not true, doesn't matter. So that's why I say, like, it's not even about women. It's about the system. That's why you're friend zoning them. I'm not saying there's not good women in the West. I'm just saying it's not worth it. So it's the same kind of thing. Is if if there's a bunch of snakes, okay, like there's a dark room and you're on these stairs and you're looking down and on the floor, there's a ton of snakes. Now, all those snakes might be non-poisonous. And they might be the type that don't bite, because some non-poisonous snakes can really mess you up with a bacterial infection. But let's say there's some snake that doesn't bite and it's non-poisonous and it will sleep with you and be friendly with you and make breakfast for you, whatever. Even if that was the case, if there was one poisonous snake and you're sleeping down in that room with those snakes crawling all over you, and there's one poisonous snake, one day you're going to step on that snake. You're not going to know. You're going to get up to take a piss, step on him. He's going to bite you and you'll die. Okay, that is the fact. And that's the problem. It doesn't have to be all the snakes. It just has to be some of the snakes or some of the snakes and the system. And I think that's the point we've reached. I personally do. That's why I'm here. I think that's the point we've reached. And so I say, friend zone Western women. Enjoy it. They friend zone you. You can friend zone them. Just be friendly to them in university. Yeah, like just be kind of like the guy, Yeah, you're just kind of like, you're not needy, You might even find that girls are suddenly attracted to you, which is funny because you've been like so thirsty your whole life that now all of a sudden you're like, hey, it's cool, And then the girl's like, hey, well, aren't you lonely? Don't you need anybody to like tidy up your place or anything? Or, they start doing this stuff or, can I, whatever, they start trying these girl things. And then you're like, oh, that would be lovely. But, yeah, like I said, I just, whatever, and they're just confused. They're just like friend zoned. So you were nice. You were polite. You kept a distance. You kept kind of a, you know what I mean? Like there's like if there was a video camera, it was always safe. And then you just say, yeah. And then you leave the U.S. and then you're like totally different. You're just totally yourself, right? Friend zone them over there, friend zone them in Europe, and then travel the world. And fucking be a man, Just be a fucking regular fucking man. I think that's the best solution. So you don't have to dip into that. You don't have to be HATE. You don't have to be. You can just smile and friend zone them. Watch when girls friend zone you. They're kind of smiling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just fucking.
They're just smiling, and then they're thinking it's like this guy's never going to get the box.
Right. Right. Like they know, right? Yeah.
And then as a guy, you should be like, this bitch ain't ever getting the D.
Right.
It's.
Right. She ain't getting the D. She ain't getting the D. She ain't getting alone with me. She ain't getting in my house. She ain't getting the deal. We're going to be friendly. It's going to be social. And then what will happen is you'll naturally want to spend less time with them because of your own decision, right? So in other words, if you're kind of like thirsty and you're always finding reasons to like watch a football game with her and then have a blanket together and be touching her, like if you're always doing that, then you'll kind of like, it's easy to fall into the kind of like that kind of like super, whatever, feminist or whatever, where you're just kind of always around and you're just cheesing off of them and they're cheesing off of you and you're putting yourself at risk, but you're ignoring the risk and you're not getting any pussy and they're going out and getting banged. That whole miserable situation you can just avoid, right? And just say, no, I don't even need this. I don't need them putting their heads on my fucking... They have super fat, huge heads in the West. I don't need this huge like rock on my shoulder. You might not even... If they lay on you when you're trying to... Like in the bed, you might not be able to breathe or something, These are large individuals, It's not... You're not dealing with some little waif, You're not dealing with some little... What have you seen when you see... you were talking about in Japan, like when you see a Western woman... in Japan, what was it that you saw?
Holy crap, dude. What did I see?
Go right into that.
What?
Yeah.
What did I see in Japan when it came to a Western girl? They're fucking large and in charge. like ridiculously large and in charge.
Now they're large and in charge everywhere, but What was it? And this was one of, by the way, I engineered this. What was it about them being in Japan that caused you to see that so clearly? Like, what was different back, obviously in the U.S., you're seeing that all the time. What was it that stood out over there? Why was that such a jarring, surprising, hilarious thing for you?
And what made it like a very jarring thing was that I was standing in line at a currency exchange center at a train station, right? And it's Japan. Train stations are very like quiet. The only thing you really hear are footsteps and just small talk, but you don't hear anyone yelling. You don't hear any of that shit. So we're in this quiet room in an office, and this group of like Western girls, they're just fucking screaming. Oh, like, well, not like screaming, but they're just being loud and like obnoxious. And then there's like old Japanese lady and like young Japanese ladies just standing there like all quiet and polite, and just seeing like the two, like that contrast of like, here's a flower, here's a cactus. Which one do you want to like be with?
Oh yeah. like in the West, like, in the West, like there's, I think the opposite happens in the West is basically you have these bullies, okay? And they just take over and men do it too in the West. Like it becomes this thing where like the louder you are, the more like whatever, alpha, whatever, screaming, cussing, fat, huge, pushing people around. The more you do that, the other people respond as kind of a defense, and they also raise their voice, and everybody is trying to kind of like win on that level, right? But in Japan, you don't see that. You kind of see an embarrassing person who has no self-control, who has no self-knowledge, and you see a lot of people, thousands or hundreds around them, all with self-control, and nobody taking the bait, nobody going for that fucking, I'm going to scream at their level. I'm going to like out, like they don't even like yell at them and say, you look like clowns. Like, shut up. This is Japan. Like, look at you, like, listen to you. You're cackling fucking, you're disrupting this whole train station.
The conversations they have is just like of pure hatred too.
Oh, what were they talking about?
I don't even know. They're just talking about how they hate Japanese food or something.
No.
Like, yeah.
No. That's that is so common too. There's like, you'll see a bunch of like overweight, basically, let's just say large, noisy individuals that wear women's clothes, right? And they're just these large beasts lumbering around in Japan and just in charge all the time. And then they're literally often complaining about something in Japan. So I remember like listening to these women, and they were like, they told me I was fat. I went to the store. I'm not fat. Am I fat? And the girls are like, babe, you're so hot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm listening to this thing, and I'm thinking like, yeah, like, you, like, they don't have your size here, baby. This country, like, nobody is that large. Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, buy special clothes for this size of whatever, I don't even know what size it would be. It like tent,
XL.
What is it called? Like circus beast level of clothing. Are they supposed to carry that just for one person or whatever? Like each city just has to have, circus beast level stuff ready to go, right? The shoes with the Velcro, because they're too obese to like put shoes on and stuff, like the Walmart fucking two flap Velcro shoes or something, right?
It's for the OLs that let themselves go completely.
Right, yeah, and you do see, like, now that processed food has fully infiltrated Japan, you do see more and more obese Japanese, definitely. And in fact, too, the scariest thing is there's a TV persona, and I forget her name, but she's like really famous right now, or I'm not sure she's famous right now, but she was like 6 months ago. And she's like just large and in charge. She's like, she lived in America and then she came back to Japan, and you will not mistake which one it is when you see her. Like it's like, I wonder which one this is. You have this like sweetie pie with like long hair standing there cute with her feet like kind of pigeon-toed a little bit, so 40 kilos, standing there. And then you'll see a very large individual next to her creating all kinds of havoc. You're not going to wonder which one it is. But yeah, and so, when I lived in Japan, one thing I saw, and I'm not saying that all Western women are large, they tend to be, and they tend to just be dishonest about it. That's the problem with Western culture, is women, if they're large, then no one tells them, because the guys still want to fuck them, right? Whereas, like, if he's not totally ripped with a six-pack, then they just ignore him. They just he's nothing, right? Whereas women, they can just be so disgusting, and guys still put them on a pedestal till they hit the wall. It's incredible. It's sad. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going to get any better. That's why you friend zone this situation. Just friend zone. But I remember when I moved to Japan, and we're talking back late 80s, 90s, early 90s, and I remember there was Western girls in Japan at the time, and it was very sociologically interesting for me. And I have to be careful, too, because I do have friends who are Western women who lived in Japan or live in Japan and, of course, struggle with their weight. We all struggle with things. And I'm not saying that is, it's not a struggle. It's a complicated thing, what I'm saying. And you really have to listen to any of my episodes, you have to listen to the whole thing to really get the overall arching theme that I'm talking about of rude, obnoxious women with no self-control, who just have no self-awareness, who are just absolutely in very, solidarity belief that their way is the right way and the Japanese way is just like against women. And like, here's a society that's thousands of years old and they just don't know anything. They're just fucking idiots. And she just knows everything she learned since 70s or whatever, And here's a society that's, a successful society, for like thousands of years. And I always look to Eastern societies as being much more knowledgeable about male-female relations than the West. I don't see the West as very knowledgeable about male-female relations, but I always see the East as better at that. They understand the complexities of men, and also, too, they understand the complexities of women. Because women do cheat in Asia, and they have a system for that. There's a way to let pressure out of the system in any Asian tradition or traditional way of living, because the Asian way is older, and they understand that there certain people are this way, certain people are that way, certain people are going to do this, and they have a whole system for it. But instead, we got these women who don't going over to Asia and just constantly just telling them what to do. That's what you'll see. These women are just constantly lecturing everybody. And they'll usually have one Japanese girl who listens to everything. And then she just gets really overweight and everybody hates her. That's generally what happens. So they'll I found that. They mentor somebody to be fat and to be a warthog. Yeah, basically I've seen that a lot. And they'll always, and there'll be one Japanese girl who just gets totally destroyed. And then the Western woman will go back to America, and then she'll be left there as an angry, bitter person for the rest of her life. I've seen this. I'm not talking theoretical. I've seen this. I've seen this many times. Any group where you see this the most in Japan is in groups where Westerners are involved. So, for example, the Catholic Church, I saw it. I saw it in 12-step groups. I saw it in certain groups. What was the other one? I saw it in NGOs. I saw it what was the other groups? Amway. I saw any group where you had a Western funded, backed group that was in Japan, where like Western women were in charge, and then they were like teaching and mentoring Japanese girls. And then there was always one that would just go for it, totally believe everything. And they would feel they're so righteous. And then like, you know, it would transform the way they looked, the way they acted. It would transform their demeanor, sometimes their hairstyles. And naturally, like, it would transform their relationships with their family, their parents. It would transform their relationships with their men. It would transform their relationships with their boss. I mean, it has very, very negative effects on these women in Japan, because in the West, you can become a very distasteful person and still be social. Again, just like your example in the train station, once they go down that road alone, it's even sadder. Because the woman's not, the Western woman's not even there to mentor them about how to hate even more. Like, you know, basically, she mentored her into this state, and now she leaves her there.
She mentored into her being like an outcast in a society where everyone's conformist.
Yeah. And you also see this. The other way you'll see it, too, is this is a very sad one. You'll see Japanese girls who get a scholarship to study, for example, in America. So they'll go to Iowa, and they'll be the most friendly girls, like the best type of Japanese girls, open-minded. You know, they want to learn English. They want to learn about other countries. And so they're like, oh, we, you know, grits and stuff. And they're like, oh, well, I can eat grits, you know. And so they basically just kind of do what everybody does there. They ride the roller coasters, you know, they read the books, they go jump in the rivers. They do everything that everybody does, right? And they go to 4th of July, you know, they've learned to cook a turkey and shit. And they kind of just learn all these things. But then like 10, 15 years later, they're always obese, always overweight, always. And when they go back to Japan, it's very sad, because you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And then I'm talking even the best ones, the ones who their personality doesn't change. They just get obese, just that one thing. And then they go back home and they can't wear the clothes in Japan. They have to order clothes from overseas. And then they need to keep that fat topped up. So they got to go to Costco to get like a whole tray of like 600 fucking sweets. And they need to get the jumbo size. They need to go to, what's that sweet that's in Japan that's like, it's American, and it's like a cinnamon roll with a lot of stuff on top.
Is it like a Cinnabon?
Cinnabon. They got to go to Cinnabon.
Damn.
They got to go to Cinnabon and get a fucking jumbo one, you know, because you're fat makes you when you don't eat enough food, when you're hungry, there's a hunger thing that goes off, right? Well, unfortunately, that goes off whether you're obese or skinny, based on if your body needs nutrition to basically fortify its current level of meat. Okay, so if you have a high level of meat, then you're gonna like need to maintain that, and no matter how many vegetables you eat, it will not satisfy that satiation. So you need to start shopping in Japan at only American Krispy Kreme. I'm serious. You don't have, this is like, I'm alarming, but when you're in Japan, you don't have all the things to keep you that fat. It's difficult to maintain that level of amazing weight, okay? You need to like get out of the system. You can't shop in Japanese supermarkets. No, you need to like shop online, go to Costco. You need to go like these type of places so that you can buy the jumbo shit and you can have the huge fucking thing so that every week you can just happily watch a video and just eat whatever it is that comes out of the package. Like in Japan, you get shamed and they just don't sell it. It's not available. It's like moving to a Islamic country. Like no longer is porn all around. Like you can't get it. You have to go underground. It's like, no, I can't get this anymore. These people are too clean living. I need Cinnabon fucking. And that's what you see. Like these women that are like destined to like ordering clothes from America, shopping at Cinnabon for breakfast, and eating like Krispy Kreme for snacks, because the Japanese snacks, those, soy sauce infused rice crackers, they just don't do the fucking trick, right? You can't fucking eat enough of those, right? They don't properly fortify that level of meat that you need to kind of satisfy that never-ending quest to satisfy that meat. Got to fucking keep that thing calm down, keep that fucking anger of hunger down, right? So I saw that, and I'll tell you, here's another reaction that Western women have in Japan. And you definitely see this. I don't know if you were with me when we were standing at Harajuku. I don't think you were there. When there was a smoking hot, and I mean smoking hot mom, a white girl. I don't know if she was probably Russian, but I'm talking like so smoking hot. There are no moms this hot in America. Like this woman was so disciplined. And she was so fucking hot. And she was pushing her stroller. So she had obviously had a baby recently. And everybody was looking at her. And she was dressed to kill. And she was pushing the baby. Very classy. She was just like pushing the baby. And what I could see in her, what I saw, and this is what I will give you the Ronin breakdown, translation of what you just saw. What I just saw there, it's a result of many things. Okay, so for example, one of the biggest things Western women have trouble with in Japan, and I don't know if you saw this, but it'd be interesting if you did, because you were only there for a few months. One of the biggest things is Western women can accept a few things. That there's cute, small Japanese girls everywhere, and that the Western guys want to be with the cuter, non-obese ones and non-large and in charge ones. They eventually accept that, right? They eventually it gets beaten into them after a while. For a while, they fight against it, but eventually there's a point, and I've seen this on Western women's faces in Japan, where they just get beaten down and there's nobody to support them. Kind of like the Western girl left without the West. There's the Westerners who run out of steam, of anger. And they finally, I've seen this after years of being in Japan, fighting the battle of womanism in Japan, and they finally realize that these women are totally happy and they're totally attractive, and they just don't care about the hate you're spewing. They just don't care. They're just smiling, and they're like, that's great. They don't even shame you for it. They're like, oh, it's good that you guys are like that, And then they go on, and they're guys are always hitting on them, and they're always getting married and having kids. And then the Western woman's just teaching English, trudging to work like a fucking large zoological creature, and just stomping. And you know how it is in Japan. The floors are very thin, And I'm not kidding. You can hardly fit into a toilet. Some of them are so skinny that it's difficult to be obese in Japan.
It's not set up for big people at all.
No, you could step through a tatami. You could break a tatami, and I've seen people do that, break things in Japan because they're so obese. Western chicks fall through chairs, and their foot go through the floor. And I've seen them tip over tea ceremony things because they just get. It's just the system's not built for them. It's just not they're too fat to lay on a one futon because it's not wide enough. You see that, right? But eventually, Western women that live in Japan for a long time, let's say 10 years, 20 years, they eventually realize that the Japanese way is more attractive. And they realize that they can't win the battle against men's biology. I just see this. If you live in Japan for a long time, you will see this look of resignation on a very, very ardent womanist after a while. And it's a beautiful thing because they just kind of realize, fuck, guys like pretty young girls, skinny young girls. Like, there's just no way to beat that. Why am I lying to myself? Like, guys, they're attracted, just like women are attracted to guys with money. Like, there's a point when you just have to accept reality, you know? And I see Western women doing that in Japan after a while. And so sometimes these women who can be very distasteful for years, after a while, they get beaten into and they kind of come out of their trance in Japan. And they realize, like, what a fool they've been. And they just kind of, like, make friends with, you know, like, for example, Western guys in Japan. And you can really talk to them. You know, you don't have to talk about that, but you can just see that they're no longer judging you. They're no longer right about everything. And they're realizing that Japan has a lot going on. And that they would be much better off to not have high blood pressure, and to protect their health when they get older, and to not be angry and have the, you know, things like that really messing with their body and blood. You know, and you see them kind of like almost coming to a Buddhist level, like awakening, where they just realize, fuck, the truth is here. It's so simple. It was staring me in the face. So Western women can go through that in Japan, and I've seen that. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Much like I really appreciate seeing anyone come to a Buddha level awakening. You know, that's what the whole Buddhism's about, is awakening. It's like Red Pill. He was under the tree, and then he could suddenly see everything that was like, you know, because he was raised like a rich kid in a palace, and now he's just under the tree, and he can see, like, he'd never seen death before, you know, and all of a sudden there's an old man. What's wrong with him? Well, he's dying. He's like, well, what is that? You know, he didn't understand hardships. He didn't understand sickness and death. Now, of course, you know, it's a story and everything, but it's a beautiful story because he was a protected kid, and like you can see, they just don't know, right, about how the people live. They don't know about saving money. They don't know about your car breaking down, not being able to fix it. They don't know about not being able to pay for the bus. They don't know about having to shoplift to eat. They don't know, like, shoplifting stuff for your mom so that you guys can fucking eat. Like, they don't know about that. And so what the Buddha was awakening to is the reality of how hard life is for people and the reality of life. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And that's what really this whole channel is about. And it's like when a feminist comes to that realization, it is definitely a beautiful thing because they have such a deep body of knowledge from all their years of being brainwashed. And also they have an understanding of how they also, you know, were fooled, really. And they're essentially their happiness stolen, right? Being on this anger, tirade, rampage, you know, so it's not the desire to find the truth and other people to see the truth, you know, might seem kind of, I mean, it can be a difficult struggle, and you can get very frustrated with people who are in that mode where they're attacking you and things like that. But in the end, if you focus on the truth, if you focus on the long-term truth, you will always win in the end. That's always the goal in life. You don't want to just look really good when you're 18, and you don't want to like get in the best shape and win some big fucking contest, and then all of a sudden just be in terrible shape and living a shit life and always talking about that gold medal, that one time. No, I mean, I think the goal is to be always healthy. It's to be always have friends. It's to be always learning. It's to be always building. And always, of course, overcoming new struggles, because as you age, you do have new struggles, right? So it's always being kind of like, this is more like a personal transformation as a man. But when you're in your 20s and you realize all the stuff I'm talking about, you think you've learned it all. But then there's these things where you're fighting not against outside world, but against your own body against aging and death.